All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of The Common Theory. And as always, I'm your host, Gatorbait TV, along with my man, Puzzlebox. And we are doing it again, you guys. We are updating the tier list. I'm very excited for this one. We're going to hit you guys with the decks that you're going to see out there in the wild that are prominent and that have been putting up results. So, very excited to knock this out with Puzzle here. And yeah, how you been, man? Been going well for you?
Not too shabby. Getting close to the end of the semester. Got one left, so we're almost done. How about
Yeah,
you?
man, life's been pretty wild lately. With all the holidays coming up and coming around, less and less time to just sit down and get to play some Magic. So
It's
it's
the
nice to be able
opposite
to.
for me. I get my break. I can play a lot more in these coming weeks.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm happy to sit down here and knock out this tier list with you because I think there's a lot of decks here that we definitely need to talk about. So
Yeah, got the end of the year coming up, so get our little summary of the year in as we go
ex-
here.
exactly. So with all that out of the way, you guys, Puzzle Bro, start us out, man.
Sure thing. First deck on the chopping block today. We've got not Blue Abdel, but Abdel, Agent of the Iron Throne. Blue, or not blue. Wow.
No
Black
blue.
and blue.
No blue.
I keep saying blue because now blue's on my mind. White, black, Abdel.
I'll take this one from you since you want to talk up blue so bad. I got you.
Yeah,
I'm here
go
for
for
you.
it. Go for
I'm
it.
here for you, bro. So this is White Black Abdo, you guys. So if you haven't noticed, this deck has become more popular within the meta. There are a few players now picking this deck up, and unlike its blue variant, this is a mid-range deck. This is mid-range at its heart. Does it have combo pieces within it? Yes, but that is not its main plan. That is not what the deck is trying to do. It's trying to outvalue you. It's trying to poke and prod and gain every small incremental thing it can. And with that said, I'd like to put this deck in A.
In A. I guess we should go ahead and clarify. Once again, we're using the S through D tiers.
Mm.
S tiers are like just the most meta defining decks in our opinion. The decks that you will probably see at least one in basically every event, and they perform well consistently across events. And it kind of goes down from there. D tier are like, I'm not real big on them. We're not really big on them, but you could still see them at an event maybe. But we're not too high on their chances of actually winning the event.
Yeah. And also too, if we'll delve into the A, B, and C as well. A's are kind of like A's and B's do a really good job at gatekeeping some of the meta. Because you're going to see a lot of these A tier decks that are very good at stopping random decks trying to come up in the meta. So we're going to put decks that are in A tier because of their ability to just push certain decks out. B tier is a deck that I believe with the right pilot will be able to get there, right? Like just reps and reps and reps, and honestly similar to C. But let's be realistic. If the C deck had one or two more cards, it may be able to continue to go up the chain, and similar to D. So some of these decks just don't have enough redundancy or don't have enough cards to be able to continue to push forward within the meta.
Yeah, so like a lot of there's the S tier where it's just like these decks are just generically fairly easy to pick up, very strong, meta defining monsters. And then like A and B are both pretty similar, I would say, in terms of like their power level, but B is just a bit more difficult, maybe a bit weaker, but at the end of the day, they're both still just like really strong decks that you have to consider. And then C and D is like they're just not as good as A and B in our opinion, and they probably also take a lot of work if they're in D tier um, to pilot effectively. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
But with
A tier for Abdel White Black. Yeah, I think it can be an A tier. I don't know. My opinion of Abdel himself has dropped a bit recently, to be honest. So I could see it in B tier, but I don't think it's horrendously difficult by any means. And I do think it's still fairly strong, so I'm okay with an A tier on this one too.
all right, now since you obviously love the next one, you're definitely gonna have to take this one away.
Blue Abdel. I can remember this one. Sword Coast Sailor, and or any other blue background because they're all the same for Abdel. Um, yeah, I mean it's still just a very very strong deck, very simple game plan, an insane amount of redundant pieces for the deck. It gets the job done. It's not the fastest deck in the format by any means. It's relatively slow for a combo deck, but it is very consistent at getting the job done.
Yeah. I think something I heard the other day as an example was the player that's been one of the players that pilots this deck within the meta said, I understand my deck is slow, and it's similar to like a freight train. Once it starts going, good luck trying to get me to stop. And I was like, that's a pretty fair assessment because once the wheels actually start spinning in this deck, it is very difficult. Just like you were saying, right? All this redundancy. It's just going to continue to do the same thing turn after turn after turn. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Um, I'd argue S tier still. Um, Once again, my opinion of Abdel has dropped a bit, but I do still think this is just like one of the most defining decks that you have to take into consideration at all times whenever you're deck building, playing the games, anything like that.
yeah, totally fair. I would also say S tier for this deck.
I want to put it in A so bad, you have no idea, but um, yeah, I still think it's very strong. But since you love this deck, you could go ahead and take it away with the next one.
All right, so we have Gretchen Titchwillow. Um, Once again, this is one of these defining meta decks of our format. I said it in the last tier list, and I'm going to say it in this one. If you do not know how this deck functions, you will not succeed in our format. You have to know how to play against this deck, or you at least have to know how this deck functions. Just like how it tries to like take a turn. I know that might be a little ridiculous to say, but the deck is incredibly powerful. It's incredibly redundant. It is the deck is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I don't think people are going to take its title. So I'm going to right off the bat, this deck belongs in S tier, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really will not understand people arguing against it being an S tier. Um, Obviously, I think the deck's insane. I play it almost every event because it's just so good. Uh,
Yeah,
there are decks that I enjoy more that I would like to play, but it's so good. Like I can't justify not playing it uh,
yeah,
almost all the time.
yeah. It's super fair. I mean, it has answers for everything. It's able to recover. It's able to hide behind its commander very well. Like the deck is solid. I mean, it's really hard to argue against this deck.
Speaking of decks that can hide behind their commander, TPI, Third Path Iconoclast, you can't hide behind the commander itself, but boy does he build a wall to hide behind. Um, I don't see this card ever being bad. It's a 2-mana commander. It's in blue-red, so it's got great colors. It creates not only just creatures, but artifact creatures. The soldier typing on them comes up every now and then as well. And you can play really whatever shell you want. You can play combo, no combo, knack combo, flicker combo, anything really. You can even play aggro builds with a bunch of pump spells. I think it's just a very versatile commander.
So I think this one might be our first little not on the same page. I actually have gotten really down on this commander. And it's not because it's not versatile, like you said, because it is. And, obviously it won an event. And if you guys did not know that, this commander did win an event. That deck was on the Ashnod's Altar, like a Storm variant. Very, very cool list. But other lists I've seen haven't performed as well as I would like them to. And if my personal opinion, I think the Knack variant is the best version I've seen. And even with all that said, so with Abdel and Third Path around with each other, cards like Echoing Truth become a lot more powerful because they actually make the same tokens, which is really weird.
Well,
But they
not the
do.
same tokens, but the same name token.
Name
It's
token.
the soldier thing that I was talking
Yes.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many weird situations where I've seen Echoing Truth like hose either one of the decks when they're around each other. So like I've just seen some really weird situations, but they're consistent with what I've seen as well. And like there's a lot of cards in our meta as well that are really punishing to the TPI player. So I've lost a little bit of faith in TPI more than I did last time. I know last time I was like boom, solid, but I'm kind of not feeling that today. What about you? I mean, I know you're a little bit more enjoying it than I am, so.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's an A tier deck. I don't think it's completely destroying the meta, putting it in S tier or anything. But it is just very consistent, and it has consistently shown up to multiple events. People love playing the deck. It's it's pretty strong still. It's still in very good colors. So I think it's an A tier deck still.
All right. I'll give you a similar to Abdel. You're not too hot on. I'm not too hot on this, but I definitely hope that I get to see a bit more players pick up TPI and start, changing my opinion on it.
For sure. Next up, we've got a Loyal Subordinate, the mono black aggro deck. This one, on one hand, it's pretty consistent at getting its commander out on turn 2 or 3. The effect on the card is strong. Free 3 damage to the table as long as he's in play at the start of combat. Plus, it's a menacing 3 attack swinger, but you're in mono black, which is not great. If you saw the meta report that I did with Clay over on the cpdh.guide YouTube channel, Mono Black had a very, very rough year in organized play this last year, not performing very well. But it is still a strong effect. However, it's still an aggro deck. And as I'm sure you guys know, I'm not too high on aggro in our format, typically.
So I think to interrupt you just a hair, my bro. I think we could kind of so we have two holy trinities in our format. We haven't gotten to them yet. but I believe this is one of those of the monocolor fiends that we have of our format. And it's very so I understand the whole mono black thing and with the statistics and everything that you know has been shown. But the only thing that was kind of keeping its head above water was this deck, was it not? Or I'm not
For
sure. I'd
mono
have to,
black, yeah,
yeah,
I think so.
yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the stats. I
I
didn't
would
get
as
to,
well. I don't remember for sure on that one, but I think this
yeah,
deck did it perform pretty okay.
yeah. So with that said, I've seen this deck win on Molsa 3, and I'm holding true to my statement of last time. And I honestly don't think my opinion's going to change for quite a while with the format. You need to beat this deck for your deck to do anything in the format. This deck goes out of its way to 3v1 the table. And this deck is good, man. I can't see this being in B tier. I know last time we had it in B tier, I dude, I'm gonna argue for it this time for A tier. I know you're not gonna agree with me, but
Yeah.
one of the Trinity did win an event.
So
So
yeah, and this one I want to push down to C tier. I think this deck kind of sucks.
uh uh
I think
you're
out of the
breaking my heart.
Trinity, this is just budget Dargo. Like,
Oh
just play Dargo. You get a better monocolor, a better commander, one less card in your deck. You
I
know
feel
what? We'll
like
get to that, but
I feel like this deck, so I have to say, I feel like this deck has solved a lot of problems for Mono Black, right? You have so many commanders that just can't round a corner to win a game, or they don't have any keywords. I've seen this commander win because it says menace. I've also seen it win because you just killed it and then you just pay 5 and put it back into play. Like, this deck plays like 34 lands, I believe, to where Dargo plays 31, right? So it also plays more lands because it can take not very well, so don't hold me all the way to my statement, but a control roll if it has to, because it's still inherently mono black, right? So it's really hard to. I think this deck has solved a lot of problems mono black has. Like it really has, in my opinion, because it's also fast. Turn 1 Dark Ritual, you put this into play, it's pretty disgusting.
I mean, yeah, it's good. It's no turn one Dargo, but
I mean, sure.
it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Um,
So I guess we're gonna have to compromise again. We're going with B
yeah,
tier again?
we'll
You
leave
want
him
C,
in B tier, but
I
just
want
so you
A.
guys, just so you guys know, we are very split on this one.
Yep. Yep.
Well, let's go
So
ahead and talk about the next piece of the Trinity.
oh, this is gonna be an awkward one. Um I think this one belongs in B tier. Um I have a huge problem with this one. And by our definition so far with loyal sub, I believe scholar. Oh, I didn't even say the name of it. So let me let you guys know. My sincere apologies here. We're kind of running through this kind of quickly. Scholar of the Ages. So, and let me just get this out of the way. The next deck we're going to be talking about is Dargo Keta. So we're doing the Trinity here for you guys, to get them out of the way, because these monocolor decks are just amazing in my opinion for the format, especially with them being monocolored. They show how powerful our format truly could be. So with that out of the way, Scholar of the Ages. Yeah, I actually took my Scholar deck apart. The reason for that was you show everyone what you're doing every time in every turn cycle. So it's very hard to hide behind anything, and the deck is very bad at protecting its life total. Now, that's if any decks are attacking at the table, which is not always, right?
Yeah.
If I played this deck in a deck with 3 combo decks or 3 control decks. I don't think I could ever lose a game ever. But that's not how our meta is anymore. There's always some deck at the table that's able to attack. And with that said, they kind of just go after you first every time, and you're just like, I have no blockers, you just poke me to death and I die. So I was kind of frustrated with having that happen to me so often. So I just said, you know what? I'm done with it. I'm going to take it apart. Now, I know not everybody that plays the deck in the meta feels that way, but that was just my personal experience with it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the meta is still combo and mid-range heavy. Aggro is getting up there a lot more than it used to, for sure. To the point where you'll probably see an aggro deck in most of your pods. But to be fair, like, all 3 of these aren't great at doing blockers. Dargo can, if it's not disrupted, and doesn't have to use them for fodder. And Loyal Sub can as well, but they'd rather be attacking with them. So none of them do great against aggro, I would say. But
I mean, but like 2 of the 3 are the aggro though, right?
but
Like,
yeah, I mean,
like
but that's the
Scholar
thing.
just
Combo is faster than aggro for the most part in our format. So, you know,
I mean, Scholar at its heart is a high tide deck though. And the problem with high tide is the more lanes you have, the more consistent you are to win the game.
that is true.
And the easier it is for you to win the game. So you want to not prematurely use your resources. You want to like be as slow as you can. Like like, have I won on turn 4 with the deck before? Yes. Was that like a freak scenario? Yes. So like I would not tell anyone to attempt to try to win on turn 4 with high tide. You really want every island is so relevant for the deck when you're trying to go off. So
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Gretchen, it can win fast, but its grind game is so much better.
exactly.
Yeah, I think it's B tier as well. Um,
Yep,
it's fine.
totally fair.
Personally, I think it's better than Loyal Sub. I think Loyal Sub is the worst of the Trinity.
Oh,
But
I'll be backwards with you. I think Loyal Sub is way better than Scholar.
yeah, we'll put it above Scholar on this list. But
Oh,
it's
oh wait, no, we're putting Loyal Sub above Scholar.
yeah, Loyal Sub above
Oh,
Scholar.
okay.
But to be fair, this list is relatively unordered within tiers, just so you guys know. But I'll throw some ordering on here, but it really doesn't matter as long as they're in the same tier for the most part. So
it only matters to us, you guys.
yeah,
We're just gonna argue.
we're
with
just
each
bickering, you know,
other. Yeah,
like the married couple. Anyways, the last
take
of the
next
Trinity, Dargo Kedis, my secret favorite. It won an event, so it has that going for it this time around. It's fast. It's mono red. Mono red is legitimate. To be fair, it is very, very fast. I am always impressed by how fast this deck can be and how well it can play through like 1 to 2 pieces of removal on Dargo before it really starts losing steam. It always impresses me. I kind of want to go like bottom of A tier this time around.
You're actually gonna put an aggro deck in A tier. I don't know if I'm having like I don't know if I'm seeing something crazy here.
like personally, I think if you're playing an S tier deck, you're still just not worried about it because it's an aggro deck.
Oh,
But
rough beats.
everyone else definitely has to worry about Dargo. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Dargo is terrifying because the nut draws. So I will give you this: the nut draws that Loyal Subordinate can have and Scholar can have don't kind of compare to Dargo. So like, Dargo plays very well through counter magic, unlike the others, to where it's just like they could take a counterspell to Dargo, and they're just like sack something else, recast it, and
Mhm.
players are like, wait, what? And a lot of people forget that notion of Dargo of it's the entire turn. So you get a lot of people misplaying as well, which kind of rough, but it's fast and it's consistent. I think that's kind of really why it's so good. You just go, oh, this opening 7 isn't that good. Oh, this second 7 isn't that good. Oh, I mulled to 4, but I drew the double strike and I have a turn 2 Dargo and a turn 3 double strike Ketis swing. And I mean, I've seen you literally do that. So like, yeah, I I want to put it in A as well. I feel a little awkward not putting it with its brethren. So
I just think it's a step above them, you know? I think it's substantially better. But yeah. Um Now we get to talk about a whole hunk of decks.
oh,
Do you wanna talk about them as a group and just bring
um,
up the differences, or how do you want to do this one?
so yeah, let's do the whole group, but let's split off the one off colored one.
Oh,
So
I wasn't. Yeah, I was gonna do that one completely separate. I'm talking
yeah,
about Is It Malcolm, baby?
yep, is it Malcolm? So we're gonna actually go in and talk about each one individually this time, you guys, because each one now at this point has truly become its own deck. And yes, Malcolm is in the command zone, but they are different decks now. We have storm versions, we have control versions, we have like turn 2 versions. Like these decks are different. And I think it should be stated and show where we think they belong.
For
But
sure.
with that out of the way, let's start with the first one, Malcolm Dargo. This is the heavy hitter of the three, I would say. Like just the one that's gonna attack you the most with just like a big dummy, because
Of the
Dargo's in the command
three,
zone. Of the four. I'm sorry, of the four.
we got the fourth one in here this time.
Yep.
Um,
Yes.
Fourth out of
Uh,
the five. The fifth still doesn't exist right now, but maybe. Um,
I have very little faith in the fifth one, sadly. But well, six. There's six, right? Or seven.
no,
There's a
there's. Oh, I forgot. Yeah,
yeah.
six. I forgot there was even a sixth one at all. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've got four, but
Yeah.
continue.
But Malcolm Dargo, guys. When the pilot of this deck puts it down, that should speak a bit of volume for where the deck should be placed, in my opinion. So I don't think much more needs to be said about it, excluding that. And with that said, I kind of want to put this in C tier.
I will never understand that sentiment. Like, yeah, it's. I'll just say it straight up. It's the worst of the four Is It Malcolms. But it's still Is It Malcolm, man? Like,
It's
are
it
you
doesn't it
like
doesn't matter though. It
we don't
doesn't have
have
this.
a deck in the C tier to actually compare it to yet. But when we start putting decks in C tier, are you really gonna say that Red Malcolm is on the same level as those? No way. It's still Malcolm.
Uh,
The deck's
I don't
still
know.
good. Like, if you just took the 99 of Malcolm Breaches and played a beat stick instead of Breaches, uh, that seems plenty okay to me, you know? Like,
Totally fair, but that's not what that deck is. That is a Banishing Knack deck. It's a completely different
but
deck.
you don't have to play that.
But that's I agree, but that's not the deck that's up
If we're
for
talking about the
discussion.
Banishing Neck variant specifically, then yeah, I'd probably go with C tier.
Yeah,
But
I mean that was the list, and that's why it's here, right? This is the list that top forward an event. This was the list that saw a lot of play over the time,
I
and
suppose.
so that is part of my argument for it.
Fair
Like,
enough. We'll
do,
put it in
do
C
I
tier.
do I agree if we plug and play Dargo in any of the other versions? Yes, I could see that. But that's not what that deck is. That's why we've split them up, right? Because they're each their own individual deck at this point. So
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, we can go a C tier. Um, I want to talk about Breaches next because it's my baby.
Let's do it. Send it.
Um, Breaches is a very cool card when partnered with Malcolm. S tier. The end. Um, no.
Damn.
Breaches enables like some very powerful alternate win conditions whenever Malcolm just gets hated out of the game completely. You know those games where Malcolm gets bolted 3 turns in a row and you just cry. Um, in those games, you can still just like play breaches and turn your pirates into pingers and get card advantage to either ramp you or get you card draw or just removal and actually just play the controlled. And this deck is a control deck that has Malcolm combos in it. It's not digging for the combo pieces like the other decks are. At least not as hard. Obviously, it still is, but. And if you have, like, a Malcolm out, a Breaches out, a Pinger that's a pirate, and you have an Ophidian Eye on that Pinger, like, it's already very powerful in any of the other Malcolm decks if you do that. But if you add Breaches into the mix, that game is over. Like, it might as well be deterministic. You're netting 6 cards and 3 treasures off of any non-creature spell or whatever triggers the pinger. Like, it's so fun. It's
Bro,
so awesome.
that's we've obviously spent too much time together, bro. That's like 42 hoops you just jumped through. That's the things that I'm supposed to say where you're supposed to say back to me. Is that actually realistic?
Yeah, yeah, it
So,
is. You've seen Malcolm with a pirate pinger and a curiosity effect. Do you think it's unrealistic to add another card that you have guaranteed access to into that combo? I don't think so. Um,
I actually think it's pretty relevant. A lot of these decks have their own specific thing that they do. And even though what Puzzle said here was a lot of things, that happens way more than you would ever think happens because of how consistent these decks are and how much deck velocity they have. So the blue Malcolm decks are able to just churn through themselves very well. And this one specifically being the comma one, or I'm sorry, the control one, is patient. And I think that needs to be put out there that this is the
Absolutely. Yeah.
patient deck of the three, or of the four. So it's the one that just goes, yep, pass. I'm not turn threeing and curving a Malcolm. I'm not turn fouring and curving out a Breaches. I don't have to do these things. Which I believe is why this deck should be where it's going to be put. Because I think me and Puzzle both agree it's S tier.
Absolutely. I mean,
So,
at bare minimum, Breaches draws you a land every turn, I swear. Uh,
yep.
but that's still just like free land drops. Come on, I mean, I'll
Yeah,
take it.
it's good.
Like,
Super good.
but yeah,
Super good.
you want to talk about your boy?
Yeah. Let's I'm gonna go to mine now. Malcolm Kedis. So if y'all don't know, I did win an event with this deck, and then I topped the prior event with this deck as well. I think this deck is disgusting. Um, I find this to be a storm deck, believe it or not. And unlike the other variants of Malcolm, to where you could go, oh, I'm going to transmute and then show the table what I do, and then they see it and then you pass, this deck goes, make a ton of treasures, transmute, get the card, play the card, win the game. So this deck has like that surprise factor to where it's just able to go, oh, I'm not doing anything, win the game. I have 6 treasures and all the cards in my hand to back this up. And the deck is so disgustingly consistent. I'm able to turn 5 a win attempt every game. The velocity the deck has just burning through itself is insane. So, my personal opinion, this goes in S tier, and it's really hard not to say it doesn't belong there.
Yeah, I have no qualms. Malcolm Kedis is a deck that I also love. I love all versions of Malcolm. Uh, Malcolm is just the coolest card ever. But yeah, Kedis enables some really strong mid game turns and is just a very solid, pretty consistent option.
Uh,
Um,
the last thing I forgot to mention about the deck as well is I've actually won quite a bit of games with combat damage with this deck, where you just accidentally like shock the other players, and it gets somewhat ignored that you're shocking them all, and it's simultaneous, right? So it ends up mattering quite more than people have ever given it credit for. So
yeah, especially if there's an aggro deck. But
yeah.
the final one for us is Malcolm Rogrock. This is essentially the 99 looks fairly similar to Malcolm Kedis, but it's playing some more rituals and stuff that sacrifices Rogrock or uses him as material in other ways. It's trying to look to win earlier. This deck is like very explosive turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. But if it hasn't won by then, it is struggling. But a lot of decks just aren't consistently able to contend with it, especially if it's able to present a win attempt on turn 3, get snuffed, and then do it again on turn 4. Like, that exact play pattern happened to me in tournament. And yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Um,
I I will say I did a comparison of the three lists, and they're like so Breaches, Kedis, and Rogra. Every version is around 30 cards different, which is quite a bit.
yeah,
So it will show you how different these lists are, but why they belong where they belong. Because if you go into a game against Malcolm Rog and you decide to not play or just say, oh, I don't have a removal spell, I'll probably draw one, you've lost by turn 3. Like, this deck is going to present the win attempt by turn 4. That's, you are mulliganing, you are, everything you're doing, all the actions you're taking is to do that, unlike the other variants. So,
yeah. That being said, I dislike how much this deck can get blown out by two pieces of interaction. Um, and it has a really hard time recovering. But it is obviously still very powerful to be able to win when this deck can. So I pushed for A tier.
um, I'm gonna say S, but I'll give you A. The reason is that if you don't know what this deck is kind of trying to do, and you're kind of like, why is it ROG? It'll beat you
Bro,
because it'll beat you. I get it. I get
saying
it. I
that
get
you
it.
win because people don't know what you're doing does not put you in S tier. Come on.
Well, it's faster. Like, the
It is
speed does
faster,
give
but
you
it
that.
is very justifiable for at least one person to have the interaction on turn 3,
Oh,
and
100%.
then one more person to have the interaction on turn 4. And then,
Completely agree.
you're
Yeah.
you're out of luck. You've pretty much lost at that point. So I don't like it in
So,
S tier. But
but yeah, I definitely go with A. It's one of those decks, and I know I said S, and truth be told, I think it does belong in A. But it's one of those decks that if we keep getting cards that help ROG, it's going to make its way into S tier.
I would love to see it end up in S tier. I like Rogue a lot too. But
Oh.
you want to talk about Malcolm Arden?
Yeah, so here's the off. I don't even know what to call this. The just
The weird
the
one.
brother, yeah, the brother that they don't talk about. Like, Malcolm and Arden. So this was a pet project for a long time. To make a long story short for you guys, there's a community member by the name of Finhorn Brownie, which has been on here with us before, and he originated a list of this. And that happened after the first Sanctuary event. And another member in the community by the name of China saw this list and had Finhorn take it off the internet and send it to him so he could privately work on it. And then said, down the line, I'm going to play in a Sanctuary event and I'm going to win with it. And long and behold, he took it to an event for the first time and he top forward with it. And so I have to say the weird things that this deck is. Okay. Yeah, let me gather my words here because this is a weird one, right? Because it's Ardenn, right? We don't ever see Ardenn in our format. What this deck does, if you squint at it hard, is it pretends to be a Kediss. So it's trying to say, hey, look, I have all these equipment and I'm able to just, or auras, and put them all at one time for the price of 3 mana, and you don't have to pay any of these costs. Which is kind of a weird thing the deck does. But it also lets you proactively play some of these auras. So it's the only deck in format that goes, hey, look, here's my Freed. I'm putting it on a Dargo to tap your Dargo down every turn, which is really wonky and really weird. But people don't counter your Freed at this point because you're helping the table. But then if you put Ardenn in play and put it on your Malcolm, you won the game. So this deck is very similar to the old school from about a year and a half back, the original Malcolm Kediss list. There was like Viridian Longbow, Psionic Gift, like all those cards from back in the day.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like the deck a lot. The first time it ever showed up to a tournament, it topped. I mean, I think that should speak for the power that the list has, personally. So I'll let you hit me with where you want it. Kind of think it,
I would say C tier, personally.
C. I want to put it at
Um,
least in B.
But yeah,
I mean,
since it did top an event, even though, events for our format are small and relatively meaningless, yada yada, um, I could go with B. It's still Malcolm. I think very highly of Malcolm. So
yeah.
I can rock it in B tier. Is it Guildmage? It's once again, it's in Is It? I don't think it's that bad at bare minimum. The nice thing about this deck is it has insane inevitability. If Is It Guildmage is in play and they have like 10 mana, you are not stopping the combo. It's impossible.
Yep.
That said, it takes a while to get there. It needs a lot of mana to do its thing. And typically, Is It Guildmage is a massive target for counter spells and removal because no one, if you're casting it, no one wants it to stick around.
So the deck plays like 18. So I believe the low I've experienced in Mana Rocks is 17. Like, that's insane. That's very similar to Scholar. And
Yeah, a lot of the 4 mana rocks get played in this
yeah.
deck.
Well, so both of those decks are Traumatic Reversal decks,
Yep.
which is a lot of build up, a lot of time. In the control mirrors, these decks are disgusting because you can't, once they get to a point, it's like you said, you cannot stop them. So with that said, I would like to put it in B tier, right along Scholar.
I agree. It's a good deck. It's got inevitability. It's not fast. Typically, it still has flicker lines, so it can be fast, but typically it's not gonna be. Tatiova, another classic. It's Simic, which is fine. It's unique. It's a 5 mana commander, which is rough. It's a 5 mana boltable commander, which is really rough. But it's got life gain and card draw. It can't be that bad, right? I still think this deck is like B tier. It's fine.
Exactly what I was gonna say. B tier, it's still consistent, still gains you life.
Yeah, it
It
gets the
does the
job
deed.
done. Uh,
Yep.
it has a different kind of inevitability to Scholar and Is It Guildmage, where it's not like inevitable that it'll win the game necessarily, but it just has so many cards that you're not beating it, and
Yep.
it'll get there.
Yep. The next one, Gut Leader. So Gut Inspiring Leader. The deck kind of fell off quite a bit here recently. Um, a few of the players are not playing it at the moment. They kind of switched around decks and stuff like that. I think that's kind of just a consideration that they wanted to play new decks. But there was a point where the deck changed to where it made the deck weaker, to where it wasn't receiving like the 2-for-1s anymore. So like cards in the sense of, a mana rock in comparison to prize statue, right? 3 cards for 1 card. And I know the newer version of Gut has moved back to its like roots. So the deck is juiced itself back up again. With that said though, it has not still been in the meta currently. So I'll let you place this deck.
I want to
I
put it
know.
in D tier, but
Oh, Jesus.
I can go with C tier. I I
I
really don't think it's good. I mean, like, just look at S tier and A tier. Like, how is this deck ever gonna have a chance? Half those decks just have blockers for days, and the other half win before Gut can kill them. Like,
so yeah,
I don't know.
I don't agree with anything you just said. Like all the skeletons are menace. Gut has a really decent amount of removal, and it has graveyard hate in the main board. Like the thing with Gut though is that it needs it needs time, right? It could kill a player by turn 5. You can disrupt it, right? But D tier, so something that we were talking about before the recording, Gut has over 100 games and still has a very respectable win rate.
Yeah, no, I just personally
And
disrespect it a lot. Because I play
yes,
Gretchen. You know.
yep.
But I can see C tier. C tier is not insane to me. B tier is a little bit crazy to me. But
I think it goes in B tier just because it's one of 3 decks that has over 100 games and still has a respectable win rate
yeah, that is
with
true.
different pilots as well.
That
So
is true.
So I would still say it's in B tier, and if it starts showing back up in the meta again, because I mean, it has one of 3 decks. It has over 100 games, right? That's insane. So if it shows back up and starts performing again, I would love to see it continue to climb the ladder.
I will say, I think it's on a similar power level to things like Loyal Subordinate, but
Mhm.
I think it takes substantially more work. And that's the main justification for C tier for me. Like, it's
Yeah,
just harder.
yep, I get it. Totally fair. I'd like to put it in B, but
Alright, we'll leave it in B tier.
that used to be an A tier, so it is dropping a rank.
Yeah, yeah. Viscopa. Viscopa Guildmage. I still think this deck's solid. Uh, Same with like all the playable guild mages. Just an insane amount of inevitability. Like they have good abilities. Those are not
Yeah,
spells. And blue is a very popular and powerful color in our format. So that alone makes it worth something.
we're on the white black one, bro. We're on
Yep,
the white black
I
one.
know. I'm saying all of them have that in common. Uh, I'm saying blue is popular, and this has a good ability. So
Yeah.
it plays
Yep.
around blue a, a very solid amount. It catches people off guard a lot with just like people forget that you can activate Viscopa multiple times in a turn to make them
Yeah.
lose like 3 times the amount of life you gain. Um,
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
yeah, I mean, and it has won an event, so I I'm fine leaving this in A tier, I think.
An A, I give you A. I give you A. I
It's
think you
been
need
seeing less
to.
play, and I've seen worse builds of it, I think. Um,
Think
but
you need to be. So if we like exclude the deck itself as a whole, if you're good at politics, this deck is better.
oh,
So
absolutely.
inherently, I'd like to put the deck in B because that's where I think the power level is. But the players that have picked this up and have played the deck are very good at politicking and have bumped it, as weird as
That's
that may sound.
possible, but I
So,
do think it's legitimately a strong pick into a lot of the meta decks. So
yeah,
I think it's in a
totally
good
fair.
spot. Um,
So,
yeah.
Disciple of Deceit. This is a very interesting one. We actually did a little experiment together with this one and tried to get this to work. I think we kind of failed. I don't know if.
Oh, we absolutely failed.
Yeah.
Other people have made it work to some extent, but our build was not amazing. I refuse to believe that this deck is bad.
I
Like,
am in the same boat, but I- like, what are you doing though, right? Like, you have to play certain cards that are just like poo on purpose to do the deed, right? Like, it's just,
it's tough to put 5 drops in
uh,
the deck, I'll be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. Like, you're putting your brain spoil in the deck to discard the brain spoil, right? Like, it's just so weird. Like,
Yeah, like this deck I think is good. I think it's a very solid deck, but the deck building is extremely difficult and the piloting is extremely difficult. It so I want to put it in B tier because I think it's very strong, but wow, is it hard.
I, I would put it in D tier because it's shown zero results.
It hasn't though. It did okay at RIW, didn't it?
It top 16, I believe.
Yeah, it did okay at RIW at least.
But that was
Um,
his only. That's with one pilot alone.
I mean,
And
sure, but
like I just it's also in blue and black, which
Gut
not a
Leader is in B tier. Um, we'll go C tier. Um,
just
we'll
ignore
compromise.
ignore me. All right, I'm not
Hey,
gonna
I
roast you
dropped
anymore.
it from B tier. I went to the tier in between our picks.
All right, we'll compromise. We'll compromise.
It's
Ironically
not D
enough,
tier. It's I refuse. It's
I,
a tutor in the command zone. It cannot be in D tier.
I mean, it does the same thing that you said was bad about Tatiova. Dies the bolt. Like, it's
But
just dead.
Tatiova doesn't search your deck for any card of the same CMC. Like if the ability's too good. It cannot be in D tier.
All right, I'll let you have this, and that means that you're gonna have to build it again and probably fail again. But I'm here with you, my
just
bro.
because
We'll do it
I'm
together.
just because I can't play Demir doesn't mean someone else can't. Um,
Totally fair.
what's this card called again? Pure Sight Mara.
Uh,
Ah, I don't know. It's fine.
I got I gotta put it. Okay, so I'm gonna start with this. There's a player that's playing it now in the meta. So they saw the last tier list. They were like, "I'm gonna play that deck. I like it." And we were like, "This is a D tier deck. No one's ever even playing it. We don't ever see it." Yeah, they have won with it a few times, and it's weird. Like it's a Viridian Longbow deck. In fact, the deck is incredibly similar to Malcolm and Arden. They share a lot of cards, like a lot. It's doing the same exact thing. So I will at least. I don't even want to put it in D tier because for someone to pick this deck up to play and win a few times with it should show that it has power in the deck itself. So I would personally like to put this deck in C tier. And for anybody that's out there watching, try this deck. I think it has
Yeah.
legs.
Bobby could win with it, but Bobby is Bobby. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with C tier. I don't think it's unplayable by any means. It's an okay card, and it's got some very cute interactions with, Hermetic Study, Longbow, but some other cards as well, like the cards that tap to draw a card, auras that
Yep.
do that, things like that. It's got some sauce.
Yeah, the deck is really cool. And no one knows what the hell you're doing,
Yeah.
which gives you that advantage. Like the same with Malcolm and Arden, and the same with this deck. No one knows what the hell you're doing. You're just like putting things on random things, and they're like, "Why are you doing this? Like, what is the point of that?" And they're like, "Oh, I lost, and the game's over." So, yeah, I think the deck's cool.
Next up is Rocco. Um, Once
If
again, it's a tutor in the command zone. It can't be that bad. Like,
if I can have a vote for best worst card in our format, I want it to be Rocco. I find this deck to be more complicated than Teshar. You might not agree with me.
oh, it's not more complicated than
You
Teshar.
you need to know every single creature in your deck, and if you change any card for the meta, you need to know that card. And if you need to know everything every one of your opponents are doing and know how to tutor which card at which time.
Okay,
And
but you only need to know creatures, and you only need to know combo cards realistically, because you hardly ever tutor for anything else. If you're tutoring for anything that's not a combo, you just cast him for 2. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
He's not
you
that hard. Like, you just your mulligans are hard, but once you have the devoted druid in hand, you know what you're tutoring. Like, you're tutoring
So
Ivy Lane.
but you say that, and if that was true, we would see people win with this.
Oh, that doesn't mean you
I've
win
seen
with it. That means
I've
you know
seen
how to play it. I know how to play
yeah,
Dargo Ketis. That doesn't mean that I win with it every time. Like, knowing
but
how
but
to
you
play a deck does not mean you win with it, because it's
sure,
so telegraphed.
super fair, super fair.
Like,
But
yeah.
yes, this is a telegraph deck. That is also very true. Um,
It's
I still
fast.
think this deck
It's
it
very
is
fast. From what I played, it's fast. It tries to combo, and if it gets stopped for the next, like, 6 turns, every 2 turns, it's gonna try again.
Yep.
The
But it
problem is that it doesn't play much interaction. At least our build didn't.
yeah.
It doesn't play much protection, so you're just jamming combos all day, and you're forcing people to interact with you, and they know they have to interact with you, so you're not catching anyone off guard.
Yep.
And then someone else just wins, and
Yep.
it's so rough. But it's gotta be at least C tier, right? Like,
I think it has to be C tier, honestly. Like I think this deck goes right next to Disciple.
yeah, I
Personally.
agree. I
And
think they're
that's
very
what
similar.
I was getting at. Yeah, because you're like tutoring, you don't know what to go get, why you're doing what you're doing, and it's so overly complicated. And in a tournament setting, if you're playing 5 rounds or 4 rounds, it's those two commanders are very overwhelming. I think we both could agree that you're like in the tank every game you play. Yeah, someone calls you and you're like, I forgot what I was doing, and then you lost the game.
Yeah, I
So
don't think
it's
Rocco's quite on the level of Disciple, but it is more difficult than a lot of the decks on this list. I will give you that.
yeah.
Um, it's a lot more difficult than the next one. Weavers. This deck is not that complicated. It's really not. Um, Cast Commander. You have a 1-card combo in your deck, and an outlet in your other commander. Like, it's not that hard. It's Gretchen if you had a combo piece and a win condition in the command zone.
I
Um,
mean,
but there are downsides to that, obviously.
this is a solid A tier. I think this deck like defines A tier, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's the Gretchen game plan with a better combo potential. Like, I
I
don't know
mean,
about combo potential. I guess the potential is actually worse. But, it more like guaranteed access to a one card combo. You only have to find one card in your deck instead of however many. But,
I mean, how often do we get to say that in our format though?
yeah,
Deck
exactly.
has a one card combo, and it's like if they have it, they have it, they win. And you've chosen to keep certain cards in your hand and ignore them, you cannot.
Yeah, it is a
So
very forcing deck.
yeah, very
Um,
much so. So I think this is a solid A tier. I
I
don't think
agree.
that
Yeah.
this could ever be kind of similar to Gretchen. I don't think this deck's ever taken off of its pedestal for quite a long time.
Yeah,
So
we need some real power creep to do that.
yep.
Um, Real Surreal. There have been so many different builds of this deck. Um, it's definitely seen its iterations and a decent number of pilots, so it's been represented in the meta. It's an initiative deck that doesn't actively try to keep the initiative most of the time. So if that tells you what my opinion of the card is in general,
Yeah, you sound almost sad to talk about it.
like
So
I really don't like initiative decks that don't keep the initiative. Um, I do kind of
well,
like the flicker variation of this deck. I think it's kind of cute, but
I I think it's fair to say that we're both on the same page where why would you ever give an opponent free value, right? Like, and a lot of the arguments I've heard is, oh, well, they're just getting a land. Yeah, if they didn't have their land drop, you netted them a card, got them a land, it's in the deck for them. That's a big deal.
yeah, that
And
is zero resources invested. I guess technically they had to invest something. They attacked you. Um,
yeah,
so you got them to do a very low commitment option that hurts you and gives them free advantage.
yeah. So I have seen a new variant of this deck running around here recently in the past couple weeks and have been impressed. It is a I don't know what to call it. I would call it a mid-range deck. It's putting out creatures, it's attacking, it's applying pressure, it's trying to burn through the initiative. And then it lets your opponent take it. But unlike the other variants that I've seen, just like you said, it goes, "Oh, you're allowed to take the initiative from me." And the way it breaks that parity, it goes, "Hey, by the way, you took it and now you tapped out because you thought you were safe. Here's a flicker. I win the game." So it uses it kind of like a, "Hey, take it from me. Okay, you did. Now I'm gonna flicker win the game." Peregrine Drake flicker combo, and it uses Bristle as the outlet in the command zone. So I think it's cute. Um, until it starts putting up more results, though, kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, so you just don't want to say D tier, but you're thinking it.
Yeah, I don't want to say it, but
He doesn't
I'm
want to
not.
be mean. Oh,
I'm not too hot on Demir. I think I
yeah,
could say
Demir's
that.
just kind of rough right now.
So,
I agree.
uh,
Sprite Dragon.
is it? It's good.
Yeah. Well, you don't believe that. You put Dargo Malcolm in C tier. Uh, but
I mean,
I mean, yeah, like it's a 2 mana hasty commander, and is it? That is a win condition. Like, I don't know. Can't be that bad. Uh,
yeah. I think it goes in C tier.
I
I actually
agree.
started. I think so. All right, this is a weird one. Hear me out. All right, you guys. This is gonna be really weird. I think it's better than what I used to think it was. I used to think this deck was just I'm gonna go all in. Don't hate me too much, Puzzle. Don't hate me. I thought this deck was ass, just the worst, the uh, garbage, like dumpster. Um, I'm playing it now, and it is hilarious to play. As of 3 days ago, what day are we in? 3 days ago, I had to add Campfire to the deck because somebody killed a Sprite Dragon 4 times and essentially could not win the game. So I was like, oh, I think we need Campfire. So the deck is hilarious. Whether I think it's tournament viable or not, I'm not sure yet. But I'm gonna keep playing it, and it makes you laugh when you play it. If a deck makes you laugh, it's fun. So yeah, I definitely believe it's a C tier deck. It's you just nuke a player off the planet. Someone bothers you, they're like, "Oh, I'll stop you." You're like, "No, you're not." I have Daze, Lava Dart, all sorts of like weird cards that like people haven't heard of. Gut Shot, like deck's hilarious. Deck's fun. So
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that goes unstated about the deck that should be stated is not only is like the card on its own solid, but it's a Voltron deck that you don't have to target your commander. So you get to play
yep,
cards like Alexi's Cloak, and it is impossible to deal with this thing when it has Shroud.
yep,
Like, it's so insane.
yep.
Um, but yeah, uh, next deck, Aranis Street Urchin. This is a deck that we've seen a lot from David Ankylosaur in events this past year. It's Groll, which sounds really rough, and it kind of is, but the commander more than makes up for that, and shows just how powerful permanent based interaction can be. I think this deck's very solid.
So I am still very, very high on this deck. I think the deck is amazing. I think it's very powerful. But I have one but. Um, Even though David did a flawless job at introducing the stickers and actually giving this deck more of an ability to win the game, it still struggles to win the game, even with all that. And something that I've seen very recently, players bully this deck. You have it on the table. If you're in seat 4 and you're playing this deck, it's essentially almost impossible to win. Like, I don't know how you win that game because every player is going to bully you if another player tries to win the game. And once you burn yourself out, that's it. So, it's rough. I still love the deck and it's our Gruul representative out there, like but I'm not as high on it as I used to be. Kind of makes me sad. So,
Yeah, we did see in tournament that part of the problem we saw like just how oppressive permanent based interaction is, especially when it's as strong as pay a mana and sacrifice some random fodder to kill a creature. That's very strong. But as you mentioned, everyone knows you have it, and that means that everyone will just go, pass priority.
yep.
Airness will deal with it. It's not my problem. There's interaction for the combo in play. Why would I deal with it? And that does make it tough sometimes. But
So,
I think the deck is still oppressive enough in enough matchups that I would put it in A, I think. What do you think?
it's just as powerful as Tantiova in Izugo Mage, personally.
All
That's
right.
kind of that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Um, because both of those decks could keep it off the table very easily. I think it's just aligned with Gut Leader. Like, I think it sits well in B. Can it beat Gut Leader easily? Yes. but it's
Fair
ignoring the
enough.
rest of the table. So
It does take a lot of effort too. It is not an easy deck. Um,
and that's exactly your reasoning with Gut Leader as well. So like I feel it sits quite well with the B tier.
yeah. Floodgate, I feel very similar with it as I do with Aranis Urchin. Um, very similar thought process. It's not
Yeah.
technically permanent based removal, but it effectively is. Um,
The Floodgate is it's super weird. And we said this last time to where it struggles against some of the higher echelon decks, right? And so will it just take Gut and mop the floor with it and make Gut look like it's not even an actual deck? The answer is yes. But it's not going to do that to Gretchen. So it's very weird how this deck functions. And it's incredibly slow. Now, I will say there has been leaps and bounds with the deck building. It's really cool with all the Ophidian creatures and stuff that it's playing right now. But I would also like to just put it right next to Aranis.
yeah, I mean, I would almost put it in C tier personally. Um,
I've always been a bit more higher on the deck than you.
yeah, you
Um,
have. I don't think the deck's amazing, but once again, I play Gretchen and I play Malcolm. So like
that's hard to
obviously
it's hard to live up to those decks, man.
obviously
So,
my
yeah,
opinion on Floodgate, a deck that doesn't do great against those two decks, is gonna be a bit lower.
yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely very impressive against a lot of the A tier and lower decks, so I can see it in B tier. Uh, for Exian Sensor, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. Beats the crap out of Malcolm.
Not Malcolm
um,
Breaches.
okay, sure. Um, but still beats the crap out of Malcolm's variants for the most part. Um, I still think I've been playing the crap out of this. I'll be honest with you. I'm on like a 10th variant at this point. I actually just switched into a new one as of yesterday. And yeah, I think the deck is really good. It's slow. There's nothing you can do to stop it from being slow. And part of the issue the deck has is your opponents are not used to only playing one spell a turn. So a lot of game actions continue trying to be taken. And you're like, hey, you did something. Hey, you can't do that. Hey, you have to target this. Hey, that doesn't work. Hey, that came into play tapped. And so it leads into a very strange dynamic with the rest of the table to where it's kind of annoying. But that doesn't take away from how good the deck truly is, in my opinion. And if I could honestly say where I think it belongs, it's C tier and can only go up from there because it does have good cards. It just has to get that plug and play with the cards to help it finish a game. Now, granted, it hasn't proven results. So I think it should go in D tier. But I think the problem is I play the deck, right? So I know what it can and cannot do. But me alone, I haven't put a lot of results with it, even myself. So
Yeah, I think the deck is D for dog water. Um,
uh
I
you're breaking my heart.
it's it just does it does okay against Malcolm. Yes. But wow, like look at the S tier, look at the A tier. A lot of these decks seem like they have a pretty okay matchup into Censor. Um, I it's fine. I don't have faith in it, especially in timed events. I don't know.
I like the deck personally. Um, I think it will get better with time. So
I
it
hope
will age
so.
well.
I love Rule of Law. It's like one of my favorite cards. So I would love for Censor to be a good deck, but
Yeah.
I do not have faith currently. Sir Conrad?
Um, So, if you guys don't know, I'm actually working with one of the RC members, Clay, on this list. On a list, let me rephrase that statement. Clay has historically been known to play a rat variant. What are the name of those rats, Puzzle? What are those?
Rat Colony or
Rat
Relentless
Colony.
Rat? Relentless
No,
Rats.
No, Rat Colony. You had it the first time.
No, he plays the 2-mana ones.
Yeah, that's Rat Colony. You got
No,
it
Rat
right.
Colony's the 3-mana one, I think.
Nope. Other way. You got it flopped. You got it flopped. But yes, so he plays that variant. I was like, I'm gonna Google this.
I
I'm
am.
gonna
I'm
prove
looking
you
it up
wrong.
right now.
Okay, let us know. Let us know so I win.
Nope, you're
So
right.
So
I'm thinking of the Gary deck that plays the
yes.
3-mana ones for the pips, but continue.
Yep. Exactly. So his list is very good, and the rat variant, but I feel it could have become more of a perfect example of what a mid-range deck can be and is supposed to be, with early interaction, clean spells, needing to be able to turn the corner, uses its commander to turn the corner, and its commander has the activated ability to end the game, even without card advantage. So the deck, in a nutshell, can truly get the job done. And I'm working with him on it, and I'm very happy to say that I think it's showing some promise. Still on the early stages of it, but I have a bit of faith in it. I'd like to put it in C tier. I really think it has legs.
I still think it's D tier. Um, I don't know. Like, it's mono black once again is rough.
I agree.
Um, it's got some stuff. It's on the tier list at least, so you know that says something about it, right? But
Exactly.
I don't know. I I still think it's D tier currently, but we
I,
can.
I, I, I think it's fair to put it in D tier right now,
I'll
but
put it at the
on
top of D tier.
there you go. It's everything it says and everything it does is insane. So once we really get it to its point, I think it's going to be a contender in the meta.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I do like Conrad. I worked on a combo build a while ago, but it was not amazing. Um, Teshar. Now this is a C tier commander. Um,
Oh, uh,
this deck is very difficult to play, very complicated. It is extremely rewarding though, um, until someone has Grave Hate. If if there's like real Grave Hate and they time it properly, it's really rough going for this deck. But there's not that much Grave Hate in tournament play right now. So the main counter for Teshar doesn't really exist. The other issue is Teshar getting countered, which yeah, that sucks. But the pluses for the deck, you have a million combo lines, so you have a lot of win conditions. You're never gonna be too upset because breaches hit your combo piece. You've got like 7 others. Um, you've got some fast lines. You've got a true instant speed win, which is very rare in our format. And the deck can also loop some tech cards that are extremely oppressive in the meta, such as Suture Priest and whatever the banner card is called, Standard Bearer. Being able to just loop those every time they get removed, Kami of the False Hope even, is just so oppressive against a lot of decks.
so I will put this out there. The S tier commanders all have instant speed win lines. So I'm gonna just
Technically, but they never do. Um,
I
Realistically, they all win at sorcery speed. Um, by instant speed, they win at instant speed, as in they can win on top of interaction again on their turn, but they're typically doing it on their turn. Teshar is the only one that really actively can attempt to win on someone else's turn because the entire combo is completely functional on someone else's turn, whereas the other stuff doesn't typically do that. Especially Abdel can, a lot more often than the others. But Gretchen is almost exclusively winning on Gretchen's turn, and same with Malcolm. Even though Malcolm can win on other people's turns.
yeah.
Like if you cast an untapper in Gretchen, you're gonna try to win that turn. You're not gonna like pass.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like that's just not
I
how it
mean,
works.
I've been very patient when I try to win with Abdel. I always try to win if somebody else tries, and then but that's a slow deck, and I feel Teshar is similar to being a slower deck as well.
Yeah, you
So
have to be patient, for sure.
yep.
But it's got some stuff, and it can just completely lock out games. So I
So
like it in C tier. It invalidates a lot of aggro decks, which feels really nice as a combo deck.
I would like to give you C tier because it used to be in D tier, and I think it's climbed up a little bit. So I
Two
definitely
people
like it.
played it in a tournament, so it's got to be something, right?
Yep,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
Now
So
we're on to some new contenders.
yes, so these are some cards that, or some commanders, I should say, that we have a lot of faith in, and we're not going to go through these too much. We have one honorable mention, which I would like to bring to the front of the line, and
Okay,
it's an
okay.
honorable mention because it won an event, and that's Loyal Apprentice. So, as Puzzle was saying earlier, it's mono red. Mono red is strong. Mono red is one of the few colors, if in fact, I'm going to be this guy. It is the only color in the format that can just win by itself and ignore everyone else. It is that color. It is the burn color. It can do the deed and it can get the job done. And in the tournament, that's exactly what this commander did. It did the deed, did it on its own, got the job done. So I like it. It has all the free value kind of built in. I mean, it's not as oppressive as 1v1, right? This one
For
is
sure.
much slower. It's kind of just doing its thing and kind of getting, I don't want to say ignored, but it's like a breaking point, right? Where you kind of did and now you're dead because it's still mono red, right? So the pokes add up, the little incremental damage it does adds up, and then you lost without even realizing you lost. So I think it's cute. I'm a fan of mono red, so what do you think?
Yeah, it's got some solid synergy pieces, like the new Sunshot Militia and
Yeah,
things of that nature. I think realistically, it's probably C tier, but I could see it in B tier. Um, I don't know.
I do not think it could sit next to a Tatiova. And honestly, I don't think it could sit next to Scholar.
Yeah,
Like,
like I think it's C
so
tier.
yeah, definitely.
But it won an event, so I could see an argument for B tier. But I think
Agreed.
realistically, more often it's going to be in the C tier.
Totally agree. So let's move on to the next one. So, Kutzel. This commander has been opening people's eyes lately. It's pretty wild. So before I say the one huge negative thing I have about it, tell me what you think about this.
I saw it. I went, "Hey, Grand Abolisher is a pretty good card." Um, and this is Grand Abolisher with pluses. So I tried to build a combo version. And then I was like, oh, wow, Selesnya combos suck. they are horrendous. They are so bad. I cannot overstate how awful the deck was. But there are some cool things, like modular creatures are really cool in the deck. Uh, Fertilid is really solid, things of that nature. I like those a lot. It's got solid card advantage. I don't think it's amazing, mainly because it doesn't have actual combo win conditions, and I don't think beat sticks are a super viable win condition. But what do you
So,
think?
so I'm going to tell you the bad thing about this card. It protects a player, and not them, someone else. So
Yeah,
what
it
ends up
makes
happening?
priority awkward.
Yep. So on their turn, another player is protected, which makes no sense. Get into a game, guys, with this commander. You're going to see what I mean. People have been telling me and telling me and telling me that that's what ends up happening. And I'm like, I guess I could see it. I guess I could see it. But I want to experience it. I did. And it does. It ends up having a weird dynamic to where like an opponent has like a prismatic strains in the graveyard or a moment's peace in the graveyard, and that'll stop this player from winning. But now they can't because they can't use it because the cut soul has turned off a different player, and it's just a really weird. Yeah, it's just weird. Like, doesn't make sense until you play against it and see it happen. But excluding that one problem, which could be overcome with like maybe Graveyard Hate or other cards, like the more you play the deck, the more you'll learn about it, right? So I would love to. I think it just belongs in Deer at the moment because it's the needs to keep seeing play. So
Yeah, I would put it in D tier. I think if we get a good Selesnya combo, this deck will be much better. Like like it's solid about better. Grand Abolisher is a real card, but
agreed.
yeah.
Oh,
Sivirus Cloakwood Hermit.
no, you're gonna hate me for this one. I'm gonna tell you where I think it belongs, and I know you might fall out of your chair, so just relax, calm down.
All right. I'm
Uh,
relaxed. I'm relaxed.
I think it goes in B tier. Yeah. uh, I
B
know you.
tier.
I look
You're gonna put it that low?
that. Oh, I really do think the deck belongs in B tier. The deck gets away with having a commander that people would rather not kill, which is fair, right? Because it's Sivrus. Like, why would I kill that when Izzet Guildmage is sitting at the table, right? So you leave it alone. But then the card advantage and the life loss does add up, and with the way the deck is constructed, it's very synergistic, and the deck is incredibly powerful. And the main player of the deck has been doing a great job of just playing it into the ground, similar to like other players that have just played certain decks into the ground to get them to where they need to be. So I definitely want to put the deck in B tier. It's gonna be a hard sell for you not to let me have B.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is C tier, and I think you explicitly stated one of the reasons that this should be in C tier, and you're not even registering that you said it.
It's the
Why
best
would you?
tortured existence deck
You
in
said,
the
and
format.
I quote, "Why would I kill the Sivirus when there's an Izzet Guildmage at the table?"
Yeah,
Exactly, because they're not even
but
on the
that's
same tier. Izzet
but that's
Guildmage
the
is
point.
so
They're
much better.
they're not going to kill it because of what
Sivirus
it
is
does.
not that strong. Like,
But
it's
that's the
good.
premise it plays. That's its
That's
point.
not a good premise. Like, that only gets you so far.
I I get it. I see it.
I
But
see this deck draw a lot of cards when I play against it. I do not see it win games very often. It's got good card advantage. It's got a pretty decent interaction suite, and it's got some cool things. but I don't think it's on the same tier as Tatiova or Scholar or Aranus. I I don't think it's B tier. We could put it
I
here.
this
People
so
can yell at me and tell me I'm wrong, but I think
I,
this deck is C tier.
so I'll give you this one. This is one of the decks that has been put through the ringer. So does it have a lot of losses? The answer is yes. But that's because it's been being worked through. So maybe some of the times you've seen it is prior to it turning the wheel and figuring out card selection and things of that nature. So it
Maybe,
is
maybe.
still getting played. It is still getting figuring out, do I play stickers? Do I not do this? Do I do this? Do I do that? It's still getting figured out, and it's almost to the point, I think.
It's
So
certainly one of the better mid-range decks, but it's a
yeah,
mid-range deck. It's just, yeah.
yeah, I get it. I
Um,
get it.
Speaking
So
of mid-range, as for Oddsmaker, I don't think this deck is amazing. It's fine. Um, it's card advantage in the command zone, albeit risky card advantage. Card advantage. It's in Rakdos, which is fine. I don't know, like it just seems very okay to me.
I'm gonna say it straight out. I think it belongs in D at the moment.
I
Um,
agree.
I've been working on a list very, very hard, and I'm doing my best to get it there. Whether I will or not is another thing, but I'm trying to see where it could go. I find it to be on a very similar axis to Severus. So, but that's kind of what mid range is, right? So,
Yeah, it's pretty mid. Exactly, you know. It's
yeah, that's the point.
mid-range is mid. Um by definition, quote me on that. Put it on a shirt. Put it on your playmat. I don't know.
We're gonna get
Um
shirts. We're gonna get shirts, guys.
Mid-range is mid. Puzzle
Yep.
talks. Uh
Don't forget the
no
DC,
really.
bro. Don't
No
forget
really.
the DC.
Um
Uh,
but yeah, it needs to prove itself more than anything. It's not an awful commander by any means. It's got Q synergies and it is card draw, but
well, but last and not least, your rabbits. Go for it. Send it.
Kadira, I really like this deck. This deck's fun. Kadira is a very interesting commander because a lot of people want to label her as aggro, but she has some consistency issues with ending the game quickly, so I wouldn't really label the deck as aggro. Um, it's not a mid-range deck by any means, though. It's a weird, like, snowball archetype. I don't know what to call it at all, other than it's a Kadira deck. The deck gets extremely out of hand if you're able to connect with Kadira like 2 times, 3 times, and your board state is just massive. And board pumps are very powerful in this deck. But you're playing green white, you're not playing combo, and you have to connect with a 3/3 commander. You get trample, which is nice, but your entire game plan revolves around dealing combat damage with a 3/3. So that can be rough.
Yeah, I think the card is cool. That's about all I got.
Yeah, the
That's
card
awkward
is
as it is.
very cool. And
I
she could definitely win games. She's on the tier list.
How about this one? I'm gonna say this. I don't respect the card a lot for 2 reasons. I have never ever played a deck without Echoing Decay or Echoing Truth since I started Pauper Commander forever ago. So, yeah,
Yeah,
cards like
but
this have
you get the green
always.
echoing card. to counteract the Echoing Decay, you know. Uh,
Fair,
but yeah,
fair.
those cards definitely hurt, and they are very common.
Yeah.
As is Pestilence and Crypt Rats and Fiery Cannonade and Dragon Breath.
So I will say this. I I love this deck for the record. Um we did an episode on this deck because how cool I think the deck is. So even with that said, I have to take off my like for the deck and my wow, I think this is so cool and actually say where I think it belongs on the tier list and I want to put it in D.
Yeah, I agree. It's really cool, really fun, and it can definitely snowball out of hand. But more often than not, it's probably not going to get there, especially if they respect your commander.
I was
Uh,
about to say that. Why did you take my quote of your quote away from me? I was going to say words of wisdom from Puzzle Box. If you respect this commander twice, you're out of the game. Like, you're not doing anything anymore. And that's rough. But also, too, the deck does take that precautionary measure, right? You do play all the protection spells similar to Gut for those exact reasons, which
yeah.
is fair, but
And
still.
you're in green, so you have ramp to kind of offset the mana, but
Yep.
yeah, it can be rough. But with that, here's a look at the completed tier list, and we'll have a link in the description to a deck stats link where you can go through and see it all in a more comprehensible view where you can actually scroll over the cards and see what they are instead of these half-cut images. But yeah, any other comments before we close it out?
Nope. I'm all good, my bro. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and give us your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let us know what we did right and what we did wrong here, and which decks we need to put on this tier list next time. Bring them to some events, get them on here. And while you're down there, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're not already. You can find links to all of our other stuff, such as our Spotify, our Linktree, our Patreon if you want to support us that way, down below in the description. And we'll see y'all next time.